Can you tell what ship I'm on just from looking at this mast? It might be a bit tricky. You probably guessed that it's a Cunard ship, but can you tell which one? Is it Queen Victoria or Queen Elizabeth? Perhaps it's Queen Mary 2, or maybe even the QE2. Or am I standing on board Queen Anne right now? The reason it's tricky to know is because this mast design is actually shared amongst all of those Cunard ships. The current Cunard fleet share a number of traits in their designs that can be dated back to the 1960s with the introduction of the QE2, this mast being just one of them. So today we're going to have a walk around the Queen Victoria and identify the parts of the ship that have their origins with the QE2.
But before we get started, what is it about QE2 that is so famous? And why did Cunard use the QE2's design as inspiration for its current Cunard ships? Well, the QE2 was built in the 1960s and entered service in 1969. This was a period of time when ocean liners were going out of vogue, because jet aircraft had well and truly eclipsed them as a global transportation method. That being said, QE2 was developed as a dual-purpose liner, an ocean liner that could also go cruising, and this is what made the ship both successful and also quite famous around the world. QE2 was designed to undertake the direct point-to-point transatlantic crossing just like her predecessors, but she was also built to undertake cruise voyages in the northern winter, allowing her to escape to the southern hemisphere and remain profitable year-round. During the 1970s, the last remaining transatlantic liners exited service, leaving QE2 the only true transatlantic liner operating regular line voyages from the 1970s until 2004 when Queen Mary 2 was introduced. This was remarkable because it gave QE2 a special space in the world, making her the most iconic and unique passenger ship that was out there. She attracted the attention of celebrities, dignitaries and royalty, and even transported Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The ship itself became synonymous with luxury global transportation and became an ambassador for Great Britain, showcasing British style to the world. However, by the 1990s, the QE2 was starting to show her age a little bit. She'd been in service for 30 years. And so Cunard invested £45 million in a major refurbishment known as the Project Lifestyle Refit to bring it up to standard with modern-day cruise ships. And this is where we see some further changes made to the ship which have inspired future Cunard ships. Because during the Project Lifestyle Refit, they introduced a number of signature spaces on board QE2 that have been continued on the current Cunard ships. QE2 was so famous that the ship's name became better known than Cunard throughout her career. And as such, when Cunard was introducing new ships such as Queen Mary 2, Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth, and now of course Queen Anne, they looked to QE2 for design inspiration. And this is why we see QE2 still live on board the modern-day Cunard ships today. So let's get back on board Queen Victoria and find some of those spaces that were inspired by the QE2.
Another feature that the current Cunard ships share with the QE2 is the funnel, one of the most iconic parts of the Cunard design. The funnel colours actually date back to 1840 when they were first applied on board RMS Britannia and her sister ships Caledonia, Acadia and Columbia. The original Cunard funnels were long, thin metallic structures that were painted in a mixture that contained buttermilk. As the funnels heated up, the heat interacted with the buttermilk and turned them a distinctive Cunard red-orange. Couple this with the black expansion joints which formed the black bands and the crew's tendency to paint the top of the funnels black because they used to get dirty, and you get the iconic Cunard funnel colours created in 1840. So the funnel colours date back to 1840, but what about the funnel design? Well, the funnel design itself actually dates back to QE2 with an innovative design that was first introduced in 1967. The funnel consists of the cowling, the funnel itself, and the scoop. The design enables for the air to be pushed up by the scoop, run over the outside of the funnel cowling and up over the ventilation shafts to allow for the smoke and soot to be blown away from the aft decks. This design has been shared by all of the modern Cunard queens, except Queen Anne, which doesn't have the scoop. When QE2 first entered service, her funnel was painted white and black, but in the 1980s was returned to the traditional Cunard colours of red and black with the black bands. This is what's carried on aboard all the Cunard ships today. Another place that you'll find elements of the QE2 on board Queen Victoria, but also all of the Cunard ships, is in the artwork. There are paintings of QE2 everywhere, from the Commodore Club to the staircases throughout the ship, to corridors where you go to get to your cabin. You can find hints of QE2 and the iconic Cunard past throughout the ships. The Club Lido was introduced on board QE2 when she started operating cruises, and it was later renamed the Lido during her 1994 refit. You will find the Lido restaurant also on board Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth, but not on Queen Anne or on Queen Mary 2. And yes, this is actually how tall I am, and this is how low this bulkhead is. They should make these Vista classes a little bit higher. This is the yacht club on board Queen Victoria. It's had this name since 2017. Before its big refit, it was actually called Hemispheres. But there have been yacht clubs on board Cunard ships since QE2 in 1987. The first yacht club was installed aboard the QE2 during the major re-engineering project in Bremerhaven. And since they have carried yacht clubs on Queen Victoria, but also Queen Elizabeth as well. You might not know this, but the original plans for Queen Mary 2 also contained a yacht club, but when the ship entered service, the nightclub was called G32. The bookshop and the neighbouring library were also signature rooms on board QE2. In fact, the first bookshop went to sea in 1994 after the ship's Project Lifestyle refit. Situated next to the library, these were treasure troves for maritime enthusiasts and people who loved ships, with shelves and shelves of books about ocean liner history on both the library side and the bookshop side. The bookshop tradition is continued on board the current Cunard ships, with a bookshop and a library found on Queen Mary 2, Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth, and a library found on board the new Queen Anne. The chart room also has its origins in 1994 with the QE2's Project Lifestyle refit. It was a refurbishment of the midships bar and it was renamed the chart room, with lots of imagery and charts displayed throughout the area. This is continued on board Queen Mary 2 and Queen Victoria.
This video is brought to you by me and my new book, The Evolution of the Passenger Ship. In The Evolution of the Passenger Ship, we've brought years of research together to create a book that takes you on a journey from the earliest sailing ships right the way through to the modern behemoths that we see today. The Evolution of the Passenger Ship is available at all good bookshops. And if you buy a copy, you help us by supporting the channel. Thanks so much, and now back to the video.
So here we are in the Queen's Room Ballroom, probably one of the most impressive lounges ever to go to sea. Now the Queen's Room was a room on board Cunard ships that was first introduced on QE2 all the way back in 1969, and there has been one on Queen Mary 2, Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth and of course Queen Anne. The Golden Lion was also introduced with Cunard back in 1994, also during QE2's Project Lifestyle refit. The Golden Lion has since been replicated on board Queen Mary 2, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria and Queen Anne. It is Cunard's traditional English pub and is a very popular place for fish and chips and chicken tikka for dinner and lunch.
There are other places on board the current Cunard ships that have an origin that dates back to QE2. For example, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria and Queen Anne all have a pavilion, and this was first introduced on board QE2 in 1994. The QE2's pavilion was located near the one-deck swimming pool and offered light snacks for passengers to take out onto the open deck, which is a similar service that the current Cunard ships offer, albeit these days it's much larger on board the current fleet. Another area that we can't miss are the grills on board the Cunard ships. In fact, all 4 Cunard Queens have the Queen's Grill and Princess Grill restaurant, but both of these restaurants have their origins with the QE2. When QE2 entered service, she didn't have a Queen's Grill restaurant and had a single grill room available for the top first-class suites. But in the 1970s, when QE2 was given her first balcony accommodation, she was given the Queen's Grill restaurant. Later, they changed the grill room into the Princess Grill restaurant, and so QE2 was the first ship to introduce these high-level restaurants on board the ship. So there you have it. QE2's design really has made a lot of impact to the current Cunard fleet that we see today, and one of the reasons why Cunard remains so popular is because of the decisions that were made throughout the 1960s to the 1990s on board the QE2. Did you know about these similarities between the old QE2 and the current Cunard fleet? Let us know in the comments below. And what's your favourite thing about the Cunard ships today? What do you enjoy most on board the ships, and does it have its origin with QE2? Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I hope to see you on board.
Buttermilk, and as the heat of the funnel increased, that were painted with a the original Cunard script either. Not a script at all. Do we do bloopers in this one, do you think?
Yes, sir.
When the ship underwent a refit, it used to be called Hemispheres, and this music is too loud for me to be talking, so you won't be able to hear a word that I'm saying.